Hi, I'm Darcy from the Pickaway County Library, and today's family challenge is to build a weather station. What's weather? Weather is the conditions outside that can change from day to day, hour to hour, minute to minute. So our weather station is going to help us observe those conditions. The items that you're going to need to build your weather station will be a couple of pencils with erasers on the top, a piece of cardstock, this is like thin cardboard, three straws, scissors, masking tape, a permanent marker, a couple straight pens, 5 cups of the same size, a ruler, a straight, flat-bottomed glass jar, a thermometer. We also have one that has a hydrometer on it, and something to poke holes with. I have an ice pick or a screwdriver. When you use these things, I would suggest working with an adult to make sure that you don't hurt yourself. You also need, the final product, some kind of a box. I'm going to use just a cardboard box, but if you're going to leave your weather station out very long, I would suggest you use a plastic box, either a tote that you don't plan on using again because you're going to put a hole in it, or even a plastic shoebox would probably do the job. Okay. The first instrument that we're going to make is the Windvane. To do your Windvane, you're going to use the cardstock that we mentioned, one of the pencils, a straw, one of the straight pens, the scissors, and the ruler. You're going to take your cardstock and mark off 4 inches and 4 inches. I'm going to finish my line there. And then take that and cut it out. Take your square and we're going to cut it in a diagonal. I think I'm going to fold it in a diagonal before I cut it, just to have it be neater, maybe. Maybe I would have done better with scissors. Okay. That way I got a little bit of a seam. The next step with the weather vane is to take your diagonals, lay them down, put your straw across it. We're going to tape each of the diagonals onto an end of the straw with our masking tape. Make sure they're really nice and secure. Another one. Then we're going to push a pen through our straw, once again being very careful not to hit your finger, and put the pen into the pencil eraser. Once you have that done, we will set that aside and come back to it when we get ready to complete our box. The next instrument that we're going to make is an anemometer. An anemometer tells us how fast the wind is blowing. To do this, you're going to need your pencil, the straight pen, 2 straws, your 5 cups, and something to poke holes with. The first thing we're going to do is take one of the cups and put a hole in the bottom. I start out with an ice pick because it's got a sharp tip, just to get a good hole started. Be very careful, have an adult help you with this so you don't stick your fingers and get hurt. Then I'm using my Phillips head screwdriver to make it large enough, because that hole has to be big enough to slide the pencil down in the cup with the eraser side up. Then I'm going to put that aside. Next, I have my other 4 cups, and I am going to put a hole just like I did before. I started with the sharpest tip and then made it big enough to slide the straw in to the cup and just have it rest on the far side. You do that with a cup on each end of the straw with the cups facing opposite direction. Same thing with the other straw and those two cups facing opposite direction. Then we take the straight pin and push it in the middle of the straw and slide it into the middle of the other straw, making an X. At that point, just to make it nice and secure, I'm going to take some masking tape and put it over that X to make it a nice tight X so we have two straight lines. The next item that we're going to work with that will be part of our weather station is a rain gauge. So what you need is a jar that is flat on the bottom. You don't want anything that curves up because that will affect your accuracy of your measurements. It also needs to be straight on the sides. It doesn't matter, how wide, how tall, just straight sides and flat bottom. We're going to have a permanent marker and a ruler. Take the ruler. So your 1 inch is toward the bottom. And kind of put it, if you can tell where the glass starts, put it there. Then we are going to make a mark at the 1 inch mark. 2 inches, 3, and 4, since this is a canning jar, is kind of right along the lid. Then I'm also going to make 1/2 inch marks that are shorter. And you could put 1/4 in if you want. I think I'm just going to leave it at 1/2. So I could even write on here 1, 2, 3, and 4 at the top. And that will be our rain gauge. Now we're ready to put our weather station together. I have my box, and the first thing I'm going to do is take my thermometer, and in my case I have a hydrometer on there, and affix it to, I'm just going to tape it to the back of the box so we can hold it up there. You could lay it on the bottom, it doesn't really matter, but it's just a little easier to see if it is attached. Okay. So that's one part. The next thing we're going to do is attach our weather vane. So I'm going just to a back corner, use some of the masking tape, take the pencil, get a couple pieces of tape so we know it's going to stay in place because if it's windy, okay, and there's our weather vane. Then we're putting on the anemometer. So you will have, as you remember, which when we started out, we have a pencil with a cup facing up. The eraser side is up. I have taken my screwdriver and put a hole in the box. Make sure it's far enough away from the weather vane that our anemometer is not going to run into the weather vane or vice versa. So we got the pencil, then we take the sides that, if you remember, we made a big X out of them and taped it and have the pin in the middle of there. The pin is going to go into the eraser. It will be seated on the eraser. The cup will give it a little bit of stability, but it shouldn't keep it from turning. It has to be a little bit loose. Our anemometer goes round, yay! And then we have our rain gauge. Do you think it makes sense to put the rain gauge in the box? I don't think so. I think the rain gauge has to sit off by itself. It needs to be away from any buildings, any trees, so nothing keeps the rain from going in. It just needs to sit off by itself so you can get an accurate rain measure. And that is your weather station. So our challenge to you is build a weather station. You can keep a log of how much rain we're getting. Spring is a very active weather time of year. You can see which direction your wind is blowing. You can say whether the wind is blowing slow, medium, really fast. If we had a tornado, I'm afraid our anemometer would come apart. So we better hope for no tornadoes. And watch our temperature and maybe even the humidity, because we'll get to see that rise as spring comes along and as our season changes from one to another here in Central Ohio. So have fun with this challenge, and we hope for good weather.